Welcome to my channel. In the chaos of Echo Ridge, a medic was told to stay out of the fight. But when her kit was blown from her hands, Isabel Reyes picked up a rifle and revealed a past no one expected. A ghost unit thought long gone, a mark etched in ink, and instincts sharper than the seals beside her. They told me medics don't belong on the front line. Treat wounds, not wage battles. One of the SEALs barked as gunfire lit up the ridge. I remember his voice, sharp, angry, and scared beneath the bravado. We were pinned down, the rocky crags of Echo Ridge turning into a crucible of dust, fire, and splintering stone. I kept my head down, cradling my kit like a lifeline. My name is Isabel Reyes, age 30, height just under 5 feet 3, and every inch of me was coated in sweat and powdered dirt. Around me, trained warriors answered the ambush with gritted teeth and trigger discipline. Their rifles barked in controlled bursts while I dragged Corporal Jensen, bleeding heavily, behind a boulder. A round clipped the rock inches from my shoulder. I didn't flinch. Reyes, fall back. This is combat, not your place. Someone yelled. I ignored him. Blood seeped through Jensen's vest, soaking my knees as I pressed hard on the wound. I didn't look up. There was no time. No space for pride or fear. My job was simple. Keep breathing, keep them breathing. The truth is, they never saw me. Not really. To the SEALs, I was just a medic, another liability tagged onto the convoy because protocol demanded it. Some even joked about it during briefing. How's someone that tiny supposed to haul a 200-pound Marine? She's gonna slow us down when things go sideways. I let them talk. I've learned silence holds more power than shouting ever could. The ambush came sudden and loud. A relief convoy, standard run through Echo Ridge, turned into a kill zone. The enemy knew the terrain better than we did. High ground, pinch points, suppressive fire from 2 flanks. They boxed us in tight, and I moved. Not out of panic, but purpose. I pulled wounded back. I checked pulses. I dressed sucking chest wounds and applied tourniquets like my hands belonged to a machine. One SEAL, Sergeant Kane, caught me wrapping his shattered arm mid-firefight. He blinked, then muttered, "You been through this before, Doc?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I knew where the bullets were coming from. I could hear the subtle difference between a distant crack and the closer pop of a suppressed rifle. I wasn't just hearing gunfire. I was mapping it. One by one, men dropped. Not all fatally, not yet. And I moved. Always a step ahead, always where I needed to be. A rhythm settled into me, something old and buried. Then it happened. A grenade hit nearby. The blast knocked my kit from my hands, sending it tumbling across jagged terrain. I scrambled toward it, and that's when I saw it. An old rifle, half buried in the dirt. Classic wood stock, scratched and familiar. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over my bag, over the medic's life I'd chosen. But something shifted in me. I let the bag fall. I picked up the rifle. Silence followed, among my team, at least. Their weapons dipped. Their eyes locked on me like I'd just sprouted wings. You think just holding it means you can fire it? Kane scoffed. I didn't speak. I sighted down the ridge. Through smoke and wind and chaos, I squeezed. Crack. One target down. Crack. A second fell. Crack. Third shot, clean. Controlled. The rifle felt like an extension of my breath. Behind me, the squad froze. Eyes wide. Mouths slightly parted. One muttered something under his breath that sounded like, "That wasn't luck." Kane stepped forward, rifle lowered. "Who the hell are you, Reyes?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, not yet. Not while the fight still raged. Not while there were lives left to save. The rifle felt heavier than I remembered. I hadn't held one since I left that life behind. My shoulder tensed under its weight, the wood worn smooth in places where hands like mine had once trained endlessly. But those weren't thoughts for now. I turned from the fallen enemies and picked up my med kit again. Without a word, I moved to Private Larkin, shrapnel to the gut, bleeding fast. I stabilized him, hands steady. The rifle never left my side. The team watched, unsure whether to speak or keep pretending this wasn't happening. "How do you know where to aim?" Sergeant Kane asked, voice low. "I just listened," I said. Listened to wind, to echoes, to the silence between shots. "You're not standard Corps," someone muttered nearby. "Not with shooting like that." They were right, of course. But it didn't matter what they suspected. We were still surrounded. A second wave of hostiles crept in from the south. This one slower, more deliberate. They'd seen their comrades fall, and now they moved with caution. I could feel the pressure of their approach in the air. The tension had a rhythm, and I'd learned to read it like a second language. I moved behind cover and scanned the terrain again. One sniper, two spotters, a team of 6 creeping down a ledge I'd once memorized years ago. My breath slowed. I fired. 3 clean shots. 3 bodies dropped. Someone exhaled sharply behind me. That's not basic training. I ignored him. One of the younger SEALs, Murphy, I think, crawled beside me, wide-eyed. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? I checked my rifle, swapped a mag, and answered without looking up. We all learn different lessons, Murphy. Kane knelt across from me, crouched low behind a shattered boulder. You're not just a medic, he said. I've seen medics panic with broken fingers. You didn't even flinch with a grenade landing near your boots. I kept working. Pressure bandage. Tourniquet. Injection. Done. He kept staring. Who trained you? I didn't answer. Not then. Because I could feel something else coming. A shift in air. A new tempo. Enemy reinforcements were repositioning. I moved toward higher ground. Found a vantage point with just enough cover to fire and see. They were preparing to flank us. One SEAL beside me watched as I tracked targets with barely a twitch. You're running this fight. No, I said. I'm keeping you alive. But deep down, we both knew the truth. I was doing more than that. I was orchestrating a defense, weaving combat triage with tactical suppression like a thread pulled tight through a needle. I fired again, left ridge, machine gun nest. Then again, top bluff, radio operator. Each round deliberate, measured, no panic, no waste. And with each shot, their eyes changed. The men who once dismissed me started moving when I barked an order. They started asking where to aim, how to shift position, where to drag the wounded. The line between medic and commander blurred in the firelight. And the woman they thought they understood was beginning to frighten them, but not in fear. In all, there was a moment, maybe half a breath, when everything went silent. No gunfire, no shouting, just the wind curling through the rocks and the faint rasp of breath from the wounded. In that silence, I felt the past reach for me again. I fired once more, center mass, controlled. The enemy radio man collapsed before he could call in a mortar strike. Kane ducked beside me, shielding another SEAL who was down with a leg injury. Reyes, that shot. How'd you see him? He was camouflaged under netting. I chambered another round. I knew where he'd be. That was the truth. You spend enough time in shadow ops, and you stop seeing terrain, you see intention. See what the enemy wants you to see, and more importantly, what they don't. You sure you're not hiding something from us? Murphy asked behind me, his voice half joking but edged with curiosity. No, I said plainly. I already hid something. Now I'm surviving with it. The SEALs didn't press right away. They were too busy watching me drop another advancing fighter from 500 meters out. One shot, no second chance. But the questions lingered. It wasn't just the shooting. It was the way I directed triage while reading enemy movement, the way I assigned defense zones to SEALs who'd never taken orders from me. And somehow, they listened. And that's when the radio died. The last line to command was lost in a burst of static. Sergeant Kane slammed his fist on the comms pack. We're cut off. No air support. No evac. Panic crept in. I felt it ripple through the squad. I didn't panic. I'd seen worse. What do we do? One of the younger guys asked, looking to Kane. Kane hesitated. Then, his eyes landed on me. I met his gaze. And then, finally, I made the decision I tried not to. I slung the rifle across my back, pulled off my gloves, and rolled up my sleeve. The tattoo still sat there, old and weathered, a serpent coiled around a rifle barrel, etched in black and red ink. A hush fell over the group. You, Kane's voice cracked. That's Crimson Wraith. That unit doesn't exist anymore. They were ghost ops. Black book. Closed. I know, I replied. I closed it. Murphy backed up slightly, his face pale. I've heard stories. That mark, only a few ever carried it. Marksmen trained in zero-compromise ops. Disavowed if captured. You were with them? I nodded once. Official records say they disbanded after the Raven Gorge incident, Kane said. One survivor. No name. Rumors said she vanished. I didn't vanish, I said. I just changed uniforms. There it was. My silence explained. The medic uniform wasn't a disguise, it was a choice. After Raven Gorge, after I watched my entire team fall because I couldn't save them and win the fight, I chose one path. I chose to save lives, not take them. Until now. Kane's eyes burned with a different kind of respect. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to be that person anymore. But you are, Murphy whispered. You're her. No, I corrected gently. I'm me. And I'm here now. That's all that matters. The seals stood quietly, the weight of the revelation settling around us like ash. There was no more doubt, no more ridicule, just understanding and fear, not of me, but of what I represented. Because if someone like me was still alive, still fighting, it meant the world wasn't done burning. And neither was I. The revelation shifted something in the unit. Suddenly, they weren't just looking to me for medical decisions. They were watching my every move like I held the key to their survival. And maybe I did. The enemy knew our position now. Their mortar fire became more precise. Chunks of the hillside exploded, raining debris and flame. We couldn't stay much longer. Kane called out, "We need to reposition. Fall back into the inner draw." "No," I said sharply. "They want us to move there. That slope's exposed. They've got a kill box waiting." He blinked. "How do you know that?" "Because I've used that trap before." He stared, then nodded. Just like that, the squad waited for me to tell them where to go. Strange how quickly a title like medic could be replaced by something more primal, survivor. I mapped out our fallback. 2x2, leapfrog style. Suppressive fire every 15 seconds, rotate shooters. I directed them through terrain they didn't know, but I did. I had trained in hills like these, fought in ones worse. We made it to a ravine, shallow but defensible. Enough rock to give cover, enough elevation to provide a clear line of sight. I assigned zones, set up watch rotations. They obeyed without hesitation. While others caught their breath, I checked the wounded again. Private Hale, frag to the abdomen, needed urgent surgery we couldn't provide out here. His blood pressure was crashing. I worked on him with furious speed, packing wounds, injecting stabilizers, controlling his breath with one hand while firing over a rock with the other. Kane watched, slack-jawed. "You're treating him and giving covering fire?" I didn't look up. "That's the job." "No, that's..." He stopped. "You're running this op better than I could." I tied off a pressure bandage and met his eyes. "You're not doing badly, Sergeant," I said. "You just weren't trained for this." He nodded slowly. "But you were." A pause. "Reyes, if you don't mind me asking, how many times have you done this?" I hesitated. Then, too many. We held our new position as another wave approached. I dropped behind a boulder, rifle up. Through my scope, I spotted the forward scout, hiding behind brush, marking our position with laser dots. I fired. He slumped. Then another, team lead this time. Center mass. Down. With each shot, the enemy grew sloppier, less organized. I was unraveling their assault, thread by thread. "Why didn't you ever come back to special ops?" Kane asked, crouching beside me. "Because I buried too many teammates." A silence hung between us. I thought maybe if I healed instead of fought, I could find peace. He nodded. "Did you?" I sighed. "Almost." The next assault wave would be their biggest yet. I knew it. I could feel it in the air. We had to end this. One final push. I pulled Kane aside. "I need to flank them. Take out their command relay. If we don't, they'll keep bringing reinforcements until none of us are left." He frowned. "You can't do that alone." "Yes, I can." He gripped my arm. "Don't. You're too important to lose." I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not here to be important. I'm here to finish this." And with that, I slipped into the shadows. Again, the path I chose wasn't on any map. It never is. I moved through the cracks in terrain, places no sane person would crawl through unless they were hunted or hunting. I ditched my bulkier gear, carrying only the rifle, a med kit, 2 grenades, and a pack of gauze rolled tight enough to seal a wound or a throat. Night had started to fall, just enough light left to cast long shadows. Perfect. I scaled a ridge using handholds carved into the stone by water and time. At the top, I paused, belly flat, eyes scanning. Down in the gulch, just below a cluster of pine and shale, sat their command relay, for men, a comms tower, 2 tents, and a heavy machine gun on a pivot. They were coordinating every move the enemy made. Take them out, and the rest might fall apart. My breath slowed. I aimed. First round, spotter. Second, gunner. Third, radio operator reaching for the handset. Then I moved. Before they could respond, I rolled down the opposite slope, using gravity and confusion as cover. One of them yelled. A shot cracked above me, wild and late. I lobbed a frag toward the tower, low and accurate. It detonated with a sharp crack, equipment and voices silenced in an instant. I didn't wait. I ran. Back down the ridge, zigzagging through brush, my legs burning, my shoulder aching from the recoil. By the time I returned to our line, the chaos had shifted in our favor. Enemy formations broke apart. Orders stopped coming. The scattered squads began firing without coordination. I slid behind Kane's position. He stared at me like I was a ghost. You did it, he whispered. They're blind, I confirmed. But they'll rally. We've got maybe 15 minutes before they regroup. He nodded. Let's end it. The SEALs moved with renewed force. Now, they weren't fighting just to survive. They were following a plan. My plan. We swept the field in disciplined arcs. I provided overwatch, dropping threats before they even raised their rifles. Reyes, Kane called across the comms. How many shots left? I checked. 7. Then make them count. I did. 1 to the left flank. 1 to the rear assault team. 2 for the armored gun crew that made the mistake of mounting an exposed hill. The last 3 I saved for their fallback position, targets fleeing into the scrub. The final shot echoed across the ravine like a punctuation mark. Then, silence. Not the silence of anticipation, but the silence of ending. The SEALs stood still, scanning for movement. Finding none. Area clear. Kane finally announced, voice tight with emotion. All units accounted for. They'd survived. We had. But I wasn't ready to celebrate. There was one more thing I had to do. I moved among the wounded, checking pulses, securing dressings, redosing meds. Not a single soldier under my care had died. I felt each of their heartbeats like small victories. Kane followed me, rifle slung, expression unreadable. I saw what you did, he said quietly. All of it. I met his eyes. And he hesitated, then saluted. Thank you, Crimson Wraith. I didn't return the salute. I'm Isabel, I said softly. Just Isabel. He nodded. Then thank you, Isabel. We stood there as the sun dipped below the ridge. The team gathered their dead, their wounded, their disbelief. No one asked what I was anymore. They knew. The walk back to base was quiet, too quiet. No jokes, no chatter. Just the heavy crunch of boots on gravel and the low hum of stretchers being pulled across uneven terrain. The men kept glancing at me, not with suspicion anymore, with questions, with respect, and something else, uncertainty, like they weren't sure who I was now. A medic? A ghost from a past life? A sniper in disguise? I didn't have an answer. I walked near the rear, scanning the horizon out of habit. The rifle stayed on my shoulder, even after the threat had passed. My hands didn't tremble, but my chest felt tight with an ache that hadn't touched me in years. I had crossed a line again. Kane approached halfway back, falling into step beside me. He didn't speak for a long time. You could have let us die, he finally said. I didn't flinch. But I didn't. No, you didn't. You saved us. But you also revealed yourself. And I know what that costs someone like you. I stayed silent. He nodded slowly, eyes forward. You didn't just fight to win. You fought to protect us, even when we didn't think we needed you. You didn't, I said. He looked at me. But you do now. A few paces ahead, Murphy glanced back. Is it true, he asked. The Gorge? The whole Crimson Wraith op? I heard stories. A ghost sniper who escaped through enemy lines with half her team dying on her heels. I nodded once. Those stories are real. Why'd you walk away? I stopped walking for a moment, letting the others move ahead. Because I failed, I said finally. Because I couldn't save them all. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. The weight of that truth settled into the air. We arrived at the forward base just after dusk. The med tent buzzed into motion. I dropped my gear and jumped back into the role I knew best. Gauze, clamps, saline, triage tags. Like I had never left it. Kane watched me from the entryway as I patched wounds and barked quiet orders to the new medics. They followed my directions without hesitation now. Once, they wouldn't have trusted me to tape an ankle. Now, they let me lead field trauma under floodlights. Kane stepped forward and handed me a canteen. You're staying? I took it, sipped. Until every one of them is stable. Even after what you did today, you're still choosing this. I looked up at him. This is the only thing that makes it right. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then we'll make sure everyone knows who they're really walking beside. I shook my head. No, don't. His brow furrowed. Why not? Because I don't want to be remembered for the people I killed, I said quietly. I want to be remembered for the ones I saved. Word spread fast, faster than I wanted. By morning, the entire base knew. They didn't call me Isabel anymore. They whispered Wraith, like it was a prayer or a warning. Some stared. A few saluted. Others just nodded with tight, thoughtful expressions, unsure how to approach someone they'd once dismissed, or worse, ignored. I ignored the stares. I had patience. 2 of the SEALs from the convoy were still critical. I spent the next hours cleaning wounds, adjusting morphine levels, and stitching delicate tears that might have been fatal if left another hour. There's a strange peace in surgery. A silence. A control I never felt behind a rifle. It's what drew me to medicine in the first place. After everything I lost at Raven Gorge, I needed something I could rebuild, something to bring back instead of take away. Still, I couldn't escape the ripple effect. One by one, the men came. Murphy was the first. He entered the med bay at shift change, awkward and stiff, holding his arm in a sling. Ma'am, Reyes, I wanted to say thank you, not just for saving my life, but for not rubbing it in. I arched an eyebrow. Rubbing what in? That we doubted you. That we treated you like dead weight. You had every right to throw it back in our faces. I set down the chart I was reviewing. I don't care how people see me when bullets aren't flying, I said. I care who they follow when they are. Murphy looked at the floor, nodding. You let us. You saved us. Then let that be enough. He gave a small, grateful smile. It is. Later that night, Sergeant Kane showed up. He wasn't bleeding, which surprised me. Just tired. Changed. His face wore something deeper than combat strain. I filed the report, he said. And I left certain things out. The tattoo. The kill count. Your past. I glanced up from the saline bag I was switching out. Why? Because the world doesn't need another legend right now, he said. It needs a medic who saved her team. That hit me harder than any bullet ever had. Thank you, I said, voice low. He nodded, then paused at the door. You ever think about going back? He asked. Special ops. I didn't hesitate. No. Why not? You still have the edge. You still have the instincts. I also have the scars. I paid for that edge with pieces of myself I can't get back. He looked down. I get that. Then, he added quietly, but if we're ever in a hellhole again, I hope you're with us. Rifle or no rifle. I didn't reply, because deep down, I wasn't sure what I'd choose the next time. A week passed. Wounds healed, spirits rose, and reinforcements arrived. The mission was classified a success, though I wasn't sure that word meant much anymore. Too many close calls. Too many ghosts stirred. Then came the part one dreaded. Command wanted a ceremony. Kane broke the news gently. They're organizing a recognition event. You're the guest of honor. I don't want it, I said without looking up from my clipboard. You saved the entire team, Reyes. This isn't a photo op. It's about honor. No, I repeated. It's about reminding people who I used to be. I didn't survive Raven Gorge to be paraded around like a myth. Kane sat on the edge of the med station cot, arms crossed. Why is it so hard for you to let people see the full picture? You did something extraordinary. Don't you want the respect you've earned? I sighed and set the clipboard down. Respect isn't the problem. Visibility is. You start becoming a name, and people stop seeing the person. He didn't respond, just nodded slowly and left. I didn't attend the ceremony. I stayed in the med bay, organizing supplies and helping train the newest medics. A quiet corporal brought me a folded flag afterward. He said it was from the unit, signed by everyone who survived. Thanks to you, he added. I didn't have words. That night, I sat outside the med tent under the stars, holding the flag. My hands trembled, not from fear or fatigue, but from the weight of all the lives connected to the threads in that cloth. Some living, some not. I remembered the faces from the gorge, the way they looked at me before the last push. They had trusted me too, and I hadn't saved them. This time I had. But the feeling didn't bring joy, it brought responsibility. That's when Kane walked up again, hands in his pockets. We told command you weren't feeling well, he said quietly, that you needed rest. Thanks, I murmured. He looked out at the horizon. Something's changed in the team, he said. They listen differently now. Fight differently. Think differently. You gave them that. I didn't respond. You don't need medals to prove your worth, Reyes, he added. But that doesn't mean you should keep hiding. I'm not hiding, I said softly. I'm healing. Kane nodded. Maybe we are too. Days bled into weeks. Missions came and went, but the whispers never stopped. The new recruits arriving at Echo Ridge always heard them. Tales of a quiet medic who once wielded a rifle like a ghost, who walked alone into a kill zone and emerged with her entire team alive. They'd glance at me with uncertain awe. I'd smile, hand them bandages, and tell them where the tongue depressors were stored. Let them wonder. That was enough. It was Murphy who finally said what I knew had been building. Reyes, sorry, Isabel. How do you do it? Do what? Carry all that and still stay so normal. Like you're just another medic. I considered his question for a long time. I remind myself that legends don't keep people alive, I said. Clean hands do. Fast thinking. Calm nerves. Humility. He blinked. But you're not just a medic. I looked him dead in the eyes. Yes, I am. I just had another job once. That doesn't mean I stopped being what I chose. He didn't argue, and that was the difference. Before, they would have laughed, questioned, brushed me off. Now, they listened. Even Kane started asking me for tactical opinions. One evening during a pre-brief, he laid out the team formation, then turned to me. Reyes, what do you think? I didn't hesitate. I adjusted the overwatch position, suggested a fallback route through a natural choke point. He nodded, updated the plan, and never once mentioned rank. Later, he admitted, they respect you more than any officer I've ever seen. Because I don't make them follow me, I said. I show them how to lead themselves. It stuck with him. I could tell. Eventually, the unit changed, not just in structure, but in heart. They started seeing everyone differently. The smallest recruit, the quietest tech, the medic in the corner. One day, a logistics guy brought me coffee. Just set it down, nodded, and walked off. On the cup, he'd written, "Thank you for seeing us all as worth saving." I still have that cup. Sometimes I wonder if any of them will ever truly understand what I gave up to become this version of myself. Maybe that's not the point. Because every time I walk through the med bay and see another young soldier limping in with bruised ribs and a sheepish grin, or another terrified recruit with their first broken finger, I remember why I stayed. Not to erase my past, but to reshape what it meant. The SEALs don't call me Wraith anymore. Not unless they're joking, and even then, it's with a tone I understand. A tone that says, "We see you now." That's enough. Kane stopped by again last night. He stood awkwardly near my desk as I finished writing an inventory log. "I've got new guys coming in," he said. Green. Not a clue what real fire looks like. I looked up. "You want me to talk to them?" He nodded. "Not about your record. About how to survive. How to serve." I considered it for a moment. Then I nodded. "Only if I can do it my way." Of course. So I did. I told them about bandages first. About infection control. About how a steady hand in the chaos is sometimes worth more than the biggest gun. I didn't tell them about the shots I took at 700 meters. Or the kill count. Or the gorge. I told them how to stop bleeding and how to breathe through panic. And at the end, I looked each of them in the eye and said, "Respect the quiet ones. They're the ones who won't need to prove themselves with noise." One of the new kids raised a hand. "Ma'am, what if we are the quiet ones?" I smiled. "Then your time will come. Because it always does. When the world collapses and the noise takes over, the quiet ones rise. Not to speak louder, but to act with calm precision. With purpose. With resolve. I know. Because that was me. And now, every day I choose again. To heal. To teach. To wait in the shadows, not for recognition, but for the moment someone needs me to stand up and remind them that heroes aren't made from medals or headlines. They're made in silence. In choices. In what we protect, not what we destroy. So yes, I was Wraith once. But now I'm the medic from Echo Ridge. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.